Good afternoon and welcome into the European SMITE Challenger Circuit. My name is Finch and boy, do we have a good set lined up here for you today. Snake Pit going to be taking on Belt Slap. Now obviously I'm not going to be breaking this all down alone. I am joined here on the desk by Will Goremizer Newberry. And Gore, like I said, this is going to be an excellent set. I mean, it's hard to think anyone could actually take down Belt Slap. They're looking like the best team in the Challenger Circuit anywhere right now. But I've got high hopes for Snake Pit.
Yeah, I honestly think there's a couple of teams in Europe that they're just on the cusp of being able to do so. Unfortunately, yesterday we didn't get to see Cold Llamas really make that break, but it's so ridiculous to think about it. We have so many, tenured rosters, I think, throughout the Challenger circuit here in EU where I just expect so much out of them. But Belt Slap has proven to just kind of be this immense brick wall that nobody can topple just yet. So Snake Pit, they're coming in. They have a lot of work cut out for them. But again, it's a group of guys that I think could pull it off.
It is going to be a good match here, Goremizer. I'm excited to see exactly what they're going to be prioritizing. Like you were telling me about the match yesterday, not even banning away some of those mage ADCs that some other teams are worried about. So Belt Slap are clearly playing brave right now. Let's take a look first, though, at the schedule so we can see which other matchups are going to be happening this week. We already talked about this match that we're about to take a look at, the Belt Slap and Snake Pit one, but there's some other ones to look at too. Cold Llama's going to need a potential bounce back set. We'll see how they do up against Donkey Hoof, and then always over there in North America, you want to watch out with Basket and the boys.
Yeah, I think that's the ones we always keep our eyes on, right? Right now, the number one teams, because they keep getting first. Now, I think I highlighted this yesterday, but Belt Slap specifically, they went first place in the first phase, also at the first phase playoffs. They went first place in the second phase, also in the second phase playoffs, right? They just gravitate towards the top, almost like a magnet that pulls them up there. And I think the fact that they're still sitting up there right now is maybe a showcase. Most of the time, you look at Poppies, you look at Snake Pit, honestly, you look at Cold Llamas as well. Those three teams are going to beat each other, but they're more than likely always going to get another loss ticked in that column because of having to deal with Belt Slap. And unfortunately, Belt Slap, I think in both phases so far this year, they've gone undefeated. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult in my eyes to take them down.
Well, we are into the picks and bans for game number one here, Gore, and I think the question when you're facing up against Belt Slap is always, how much attention are you going to put towards Johnny? I know you feel like we end up talking about this guy too often, Gore, but I feel like in the ban phase, you can't let him get some of those hyper-carry assassins that we know he likes to take the game over on, but he'll beat you on standard picks, on weird picks that no one else plays. Is it even worth trying to take stuff from him, or do you maybe look towards Tricks or Zeros as God Pool here instead?
Man, I think you have to ban parts of what he carries and what he brings just because they can carry more than anything. Yesterday we saw a lot of focus like Bakasura, Kali. You notice the Ao Kwang here, which again is going to be a shot towards him. It's just the fact that he is so impactful in-game that yesterday they had maybe 4 targeted bans at him at one point, and he just brought in Raven and said, okay, cool, I'll do this then. And the fact that he is such a deep god pool, and I think I said it this way yesterday, I was just like, he's going to be making plays. He's going to be one of the biggest impacts here for Belt Slap, at least, like the front man of the group. He's the lead singer, everybody else is the ensemble behind him. And, it may be more akin to, like, Guns N' Roses, where everyone knows Axl Rose, but also everybody recognizes Slash back there. Everybody in Belt Slap has a part, but Johnny almost always gets to be the one standing at the front of it, and he just has such a deep god pool that it's, again, impossible not to talk about him. I hate it a little bit. Like, I just wish it was easier to avoid the jungler for just a little bit.
Well, Snake Pit elect to ban away 2 of those hyper carries that we were talking about in the jungle, the Ao Kwang and the Kali. That leaves all these mage ADCs available to be picked if the Freya or the Ola run are wanted alongside the Emoja, alongside the Amaterasu. A lot of what's considered top picks make it through, but it's just the Emoja for Snake Pit to start off with. Belt Slap respond with Fafnir Jing Wei. These don't scream out to me as particularly high-value top-tier picks. They're leaving open the Amaterasu, as I just mentioned, the Emoja, potentially a Freya or an Ola run. Be surprised if one of those weren't picked up here for Snake Pit, but here's the thing about Belt Slap, Gore. I think that they know they can give the enemy team basically whatever they want, and Belt Slap are still favored.
Yeah, that's almost ridiculous to me to think about, right? I'm looking at Snake Pits, I see a Yamoja, Amaterasu, and Merlin, and in most cases I'm thinking, all right, let's just go to game 2. Like, this is 3 out of 5 picks that are going to be difficult to deal with, and that's still with Freya on the table and potentially an incredible jungler still available for them, considering what we've seen at the top. You know, maybe with Nemesis gone, you don't get the #1 pick over there, but it's 3 picks for Snake Pit that just fundamentally do well, but we've seen Zeros on this Morrigan. We know what Belt Slap can do with that. We know the Jingwei in the Fafnir lane, even though it's maybe not the most popular in their role. It fits Trixtank's play for the Fafnir, and I think the Jingwei is just the right curve for power to just escalate into the background, essentially. She becomes one of the higher carry potentials 20 minutes into the game, but for the first 15, you're just chilling.
Well, you gotta ban this tier away from Julio, so I won't get mad at the Snake Pit for that. But as you already highlighted, Zeros on Morrigan is pretty close to a signature pick, about as close as you can get. So that is a scary combination. I imagine we'll see some Doom or movement speed type builds there for him, so we can move around the map. But we still have the question, I think, of what Johnny is going to be taking. Belt Slap are kind of taking their time with this pick, maybe knowing that they'll be able to get some more bans out of it, and he can still wait till later on in the draft to get what he wants. As finally, we see Freya getting banned away.
I wonder if there's ever a world where Johnny, 1, would be willing to try and pull a Morrigan jungle out, and 2, could actually rip it from the hands of Zeros in order to do it in a game. I don't think those two things are ever going to line up. I feel like it'd be very difficult to accomplish. But it is one of those things, like, you could pick feasibly anything for Johnny, and I just can't argue against it. I've seen what he's able to do, even with some that don't have very high carry potential. He's able to go in with it. So I think the fact that they're maybe saving his pick for last is just going to make it even harder for Snake Pit.
Ooh, the Wukong coming through. Gotta think that's going to be for Julio over in the solo lane. Been enabled largely by Soul Leader and how much stronger that item is now, and some of the other changes over there in solo lane. If you have some decent sustain, then you can make it work over there. And Wukong, maybe without it in the kit aside from the ult, you can certainly get it from itemization. For Snake Pit, though, it'll be Rom, so they're not elected to take the Ola run at all. It's been passed over throughout 10 bans and 9 picks so far, so 19, I suppose, other gods came to mind here for Snake Pit and Belt Slap. Ahead of that, the Raven, as you mentioned for Johnny yesterday, is going to be picked up for Snake Pit here instead.
And I like Snake Pit's draft. I think they have a lot of early game pressure that translates into a lot of late game damage, and honestly, every single one of those picks is enough to carry a team and carry a game. I think in terms of just draft potential, Snake Pit have everything they need. The problem is turning that draft potential into something that could take down Belt Slap is a different conversation to be had, especially with Johnny locking in that Bakasura at the very end there. It's just... that's scary in and of itself. If Zeros wasn't on Morrigan, if Arkle wasn't on Jingwei, I'd already be scared for you just because of that one pick in the jungle. But then you get Arkle on something he's comfortable with, Zeros on something that he's not only comfortable with, but he loves to play. That makes it even more scary for me. Belt Slap have a lot going for them in this draft as well.
They do, man, and you're right, I think, to highlight Johnny on this Bakasura. I mean, sure, you could ban away the Ao Kuang and the Kali, but if you're going to let him get Bakasura, then it isn't very functionally different in my mind from either of those two picks. You still have a lot of problems on your hands. But as you mentioned, Snake Pit have an excellent draft, too. I think a lot of the pressure here, Gore, is going to be on Dazer to control a lot of this space at this Umoja, because they don't have a ton of great CC. They're reliant on Terrorum's ultimate. They're reliant, really, on this ultimate from Dazer. He's going to have to make sure he's the one that's sort of dissecting and controlling these fights.
Oh yeah, that's going to be difficult as well. We've seen, you know, what Ghost can do with a Yamoja. We've seen at the highest level that you can walk forward and feasibly get a double kill with Yamoja. The ults can make the difference and make or break some of this. And yeah, they're going for the Alpha Harpy. They saved the Hog for the Alpha Harpy. I guess they're clear good enough there for Belt Slap. Maybe it's going to be enough to get them some extra experience, but I think the fact that they have maybe just less pressure in this lane, they're willing to not fight it early.
Perhaps that's the idea, right? Assuming that with a Rom Yamoja with that level of clear, with Rom's Astral Arrows at level 1 and Yamoja being able to double cast, that they'd never get lane pressure there, so use the Hog for Alpha and try and catch back up and farm that way. If that is the thinking, I like it. Perhaps we'll see more of that from some of these other teams. Belt Slap, I think, a pretty good window into what SPL teams might consider doing as well. They are essentially, as far as I'm concerned, good enough to be there, so I trust whatever Belt Slap are working on.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something that I think I love out of him, right? You see Spudio and Dazer kind of peek over. They see the Alpha Harpy's not there, but that's actually my favorite play from a duo lane, especially when I'm over there. I don't really like putting any pressure or any credence to the Alpha Harpy. I think it's worthwhile every now and then, and obviously they stack up. But as much time as it takes to kill early on, especially if you don't have a Hog like Trickstank did the first time, I like getting those oracles. Yeah, maybe it's stripping something away from your jungler a little bit, but at the same time, you're getting guaranteed vision. It's a little bit more experience for your duo lane. And I love the fact that they're trying to keep the pressure going, knowing that they have that faster clear.
Arkle has been stunned, takes a good deal of damage, and they will yet again relent in the long lane and back off. Dazer has started with this upgraded shell here, Gore, and I think that's going to be another one of those cooldowns we're going to have to keep an eye on. Dazer's going to be critical this game for Snake Pit. We've already said it. But now when you factor in that he's the one responsible for getting those block stacks out there and helping protect them up against Johnny or Arkle, whomever it is that shows up, Dazer has a lot of the responsibility.
And that's what it is, right? It's that fear, that threat. Like, you could get stunned by tricks and just have a normal shell to be able to make sure that you're not going to die too fast between him and Arkle. But the minute Johnny gets into the equation, those block stacks are just so valuable at being able to stop his damage and try to control the flow of the fight. It's just going to help them out. But like you said, that cooldown, it's going to be important. It's a long one to eat if you end up dropping it. So if Johnny just kind of peeks his head in, gets a really good set of autos, maybe doesn't even have to drop his ult, then now you're in an awkward position as Snake Pit where you can't stay aggressive anymore, because the minute he shows his face again, you're locked down. And if he does decide to ult, you're locked down even more. I mean, it's not a lot of mobility over here, especially if Bakasura throws out his cripple field with his ult. You can't roll away anymore. As Rom, yeah, you might be able to get some good riptides out of the Yamoja, but I think you have to be kind of, you know, predicting where Johnny's going to be and hopefully thinking he won't follow up, even though he has blink and a jump on you. So I expect a lot out of this Bakasura once he hits that stride. Early game isn't necessarily going to be where I think he's going to tear through them, though.
And Worst Turtle has to get involved just like this. Trickstank using the last bit of his mana, able to escape, but the Riptide is just that much better. Spudio gets first blood for Snake Pit, and that is the strength of Yamoja. And the strength of this Robin Gord, he's the early game, the most early game pick on the whole map. He's got to do more of that.
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday, me and Mifflin, and, you know, his exact blanket statement was levels 2 through 10 is what he gives Robin as being one of the best in the game when he's locked in. And this is what you expect. You know, maybe starting at level 3 you can make the rotation over, but the root, the jump for the follow-up now that he has his ult available, a slow, it's just going to be an immense amount of lockdown, to the point where you probably didn't need a sick Riptide from Dazer, but the fact that that's coming through as well just solidifies how they can get kills here. A lot is up for grabs early on, but the problem I'm seeing is that I feel like there should be a little more pressure happening right now, right? It's only one kill, and yeah, it's Europe, it's usually a little bit slower, but trying to shut down Johnny, trying to shut down Zeros and Arkle a little bit more would benefit you much longer into the late game, and it plays perfectly into Worst Turtle's power curve.
It does, and it's exactly right? You get the dual lane pressure with your Yamoja Rom and their ability to clear pretty quickly. Then you have Worst Turtle come over and capitalize. You get that kill into Trickstank. This is exactly how Snake Pit have to start the game. They just have to make sure they can keep up this type of pace. Start to move this over into some buff invades. We saw Dazer and Spudio strip away an Alpha Harpy the last time they were up there. They're going to have to start stepping it up a little bit more, but this is exactly the right trajectory that they're on. And I'm glad you brought up Worst Turtle potentially trying to punish Zeros, because few things are scarier to me than an unchecked Morrigan piloted by Zeros allowed to free farm all game. Gotta slow that down a bit too.
Yeah, anything Zeros has, if it goes unchecked, is going to be deadly, but when you put him on something that is not only a god that he loves to play, but one that he loves to play and does it really well, then you're starting to run a big issue.
Boy, heavy commitment here from Dazer, and it ends up finding at least some pay dirt. Arkle has to use his ultimate, that airstrike, defensively in order to make it out of there, Gore. But that was close in left. Dazer really willing to do whatever it takes to make sure Arkle's under some pressure on that left-hand side and not giving a free laning phase over to this Jingwei.
And impressive to have it that early on. I mean, level 5 as a support, you're not super tanky. Trying to dive a tier 1 isn't going to happen too often. I don't know if Arkle needed to use his ult there, but I like the safe, like better safe than sorry. There's a reason there's a phrase for it, and it's exactly that. If you have to use your ult, yeah, it's on cooldown, but what are they going to do now? Dazer doesn't have any real setup potential on you. You're playing safe, you're playing patient, and I think this is what Arkle needs to do. Honestly, this is what Belt Slap need to do. As long as they don't find themselves at a massive deficit in the next 10 minutes, then they're just going to start coming online through items that they pick up and the levels that they're going to gain from farm.
They are, and I think that having the Bakasura instead of the Robin, I mean, maybe gives them a slight late-game advantage, but I mean, neither one of these drafts is going to struggle in the mid to late game, right?
No.
If you're bringing Rom, Yamoja, Merlin, Ama into the late game, that's about as good as it gets in terms of your ability to scale into that part of the game, so certainly Belt Slap can't just sit on their hands forever, but right now is not their time. I'm with you in that regard, Gord.
You know, Finch, I always like to think about, whenever I hone in on a Morrigan, I try to think, what could she turn into? Right. And I realized, you know what? That's an Amaterasu that Belt Slap now have on their team, right? Yeah. That's some setup that you get there. Oh, wait, maybe it's not Amaterasu. Maybe it's Dazer, and instead he transforms into a Yamoja with another big setup. And then I had an incredibly scary thought. Now, I don't know how it is. It's actually, speaking of Yamoja ult, comes out there. I don't know how good Zeros is at Bakasura, but I can imagine if Johnny gets well fed by the late portion of this game, 2 Bakasuras is maybe one of the scariest thoughts I've ever had in Smite, especially if you only have one upgraded shell right now.
It's going to be difficult for them to deal with. You pointed out that Arkle had the ultimate forced out over there in left. Dazer has now repeatedly traded his ultimate out for Arkle's. I don't know if he thinks there's skill potential, if he just wants to put the ultimate on cooldown to make him more gankable, but we have not quite seen Worst Turtle there to follow up from it. Maybe this next time will give us some insight into what the idea is from this repeated pressure into Dazer. It might just be purely for the end goal of making him less safe over there and sending him back to base more often.
Yeah, high gank ability. Being able to go over there knowing he's not safe, or do something like this, knowing he can't airstrike in and steal.
Gold Fury starting to be low. Merlin damage is good, confirmed, but Belt Slap stealing. Zeros comes in and crushes Worst Turtle. Angry is in trouble as well as Johnny completes the second kill. Turkstay gets Dazer, and I can't believe it only took 8.5 minutes for them to get Belt Slapped. It's so quickly that it starts to happen, Gord.
It just... blink of an eye, all of a sudden they hit the go pedal, right? I mean, everything is perfectly fine if you're Snake Pit. I love the call for the Gold Fury. I think maybe you could leech it a little bit faster. You recognize that Belt Slap are going to be in the area. You're not trying to get the Fury. You're trying to bait them into a fight, take the Fury afterward. Unfortunately, they stuck to the Fury play, not the fight play. And Belt Slap, I mean, one, being able to strip it away is immense for them, but then to follow it up with 3 kills unanswered, that's how you not only strip away a lead that Snake Pit had started to cultivate, but you start your own.
And they stole the early game advantage that we thought Snake Pit had with that Changeling ultimate, right? By having Zero's turn into the Robin to use that to try and push it and get aggressive. I mean, it's tough, man. It is tough when you're playing up against this squad because they have so many different ways that they can win. Sometimes it is Johnny. A lot of the times it's Johnny, but sometimes it's Trickstick. Sometimes it's Zero's. And before you know it, what you thought was your strongest point of the game, your advantage, has been taken away from you, and Belt Slap using it for their own ends.
I still think Belt Slap being analogous to, you know, just like a standard band is still perfect for me, and it's just because everyone's going to have their own part, and it's just which part of the song are you in, right? If it's Johnny, usually maybe it's some crazy vocals that are coming through, but every time Zeros is in there, it's maybe not as consistent, it's not as forward as Johnny's play, but I don't ever see Zeros having a bad game. I never think of it and say, man, Zeros is the one. You know what? Maybe he is. I think him and Trickstank are the bass and the drums that come through, where it's just like they are the ones that are the foundation for literally everyone else in the band and for all of the songs. And if you didn't have him, it wouldn't work as well. And I think that's where Zeros comes in. And on Morrigan, he can become the one that stands up front for them. But I think every time he has a game, it's always solid.
Arkle appears to recognize the Worst Turtle gank is on the way, and Worst Turtle ends up getting nothing out of it. Yep, walked right over a belt slap ward, and Arkle always mindful, and Worst Turtle might end up paying for it. Has to use the Mystic Rush defensively, so that's Trixtank's ultimate now on cooldown in response. They end up trading support ultimate for jungle, but I don't think Trix is done yet. They step a bit further forward, seeing if there's anything they can find, but good work from Dazer. Riptide allows him to retreat, and belt slap end up having to give it up.
I'm a little surprised to see Trix just kind of throw his ult out, but I guess if anyone on this team was going to just throw their ult out, it's probably Trix. I mean, you get immunity while you're channeling it, but at the same time, it's not going to cost you much if you don't have it. In fact, it's maybe just going to help you chase kills down like that. And if it's just enough to scare away Snake Pit, that's fine. You use it at a perfect time that it'll be up right around the time the next Fury is going to be respawning, so you aren't losing out on any pressure. No objectives are going to be lost from it, and I think Trixtank, at the end of the day, he just wanted more kills, but he uses it very appropriately where they don't lose anything out of it either.
I like it. I mean, you highlighted it perfectly. They don't super need that Draconic Corruption from Trixtank right now with no objectives up on the map, and with Belt Slap not looking to make a play. And they know for a fact Snake Pit are looking to make a play because Worst Turtle just tried to gank Arkle but got foiled by that ward over there. So trading out ult you're not going to use for their best ganking ultimate makes a ton of sense to me. And Belt Slap continue to control this early pace of the game. I was not saying this 5 minutes ago, but that Gold Fury play has changed the texture of the entire match.
It's, yeah, everything. Again, just flips in the blink of an eye. And the problem that teams going up against Belt Slap typically run into is how do you get back from this, right? You're in a position, you've lost everything. How do you start taking them down and turn it around so you can get the lead back? And I'm looking at this Oni Fury that's going to be spawning in about a minute. That's probably your best bet, but unless you're able to win a significant fight, I think, right prior, where you can get rid of at least 2 members of Belt Slap, I don't know if it's going to work.
It'll be difficult for them. Berserker Shield for Tarim is his next item as he leans in to the auto attack Amaterasu build. Tarim take a back, and this will give us a good indication of what the team is feeling. If he uses the teleport to get back to lane, then yeah, I don't know if Snake Pit are considering any big Gold Fury plays for now. We're still 20 seconds away, so there's plenty of time still to reset and reposition, but that makes me think they're not that interested in trying to make a play. In fact, Johnny shows up in the solo lane looking for Terrorum, but Amaterasu too quick and makes it out of there.
It's one of those moments, I'm either going to get a kill or I'm going to get your buff, or in this case, maybe try to get both. Your best case scenario there as Snake Pit is to just not die, and maybe you can try to confirm your buff out from underneath them, but Tarim is Amaterasu at this point, just got his sledge, so you know that they're going to be tanky enough. They're not in stress of death just yet, but there's not much they can do to get aggressive either. They really do need the team around them, although they might have bitten off more than they can chew over here by trying to aggress into Johnny, which is never something I recommend for pretty much anybody.
Maybe a bit worrisome to show presence from Johnny over there with the Gold Fury up, but that's why Zeros and Trixtank are hanging over near that Gold Fury pit. They're trying to maintain control of it and gank solo lane at the same time. That's Belt Slap thinking about the entire map simultaneously, and it makes it hard for Snake Pit to know where to go. I mean, that's it. It's your knee-jerk reactions to start heading over here in response to pressure in solo, but Belt Slap are kind of covering both options there and making it hard for Snake Pit.
And I think it just showcases maybe partially how impressive Morrigan can be and how strong I think Zeros is, because it's a 4v3 over there around the Fury Pit, but you never know what Zeros is going to turn into. Also, he has the stealth, so you never know if he's just going to show up in your backline. Trying to fight into that is not something that you're going to feel super confident in Snake Pit. So I think they're playing it, again, appropriately patient. But at the same time, the longer Belt Slap have this lead, the higher it gets. I mean, it's already gone from 1,000 to about 1,500, and soon enough I expect to see that, again, just rising gradually. Because they don't really care if they're getting kills. They're going to play the map better.
It's been their calling card of Belt Slap, really, for as long as we've been watching this team. I mean, even when a lot of these players were at the SPL level with Zeros, Trixtank, and Arkle, they played with a sort of patient play style. I mean, Trixtank, that comes to mind to me for him, whenever I think about his old days. But look at this Gold Fury already being pulled by Beltzep, and look at Dazer. He looks like he was just in a bad fight. Has to disengage. No way he could step back into the Gold Fury and try and fight here. He'll use the emoji sustain the best he can, but the Fury down well below half already. Worst Turtle and Tarum trying to force their way in, but Beltzep want the fight. Johnny took a leap back over towards the left side. He's clearing the wave, so he won't be here in this battle, but the rest of Beltzep are winning it anyway. The Snake Pit are entirely on the run, and Beltzep have forgotten about the Fury. They want the fight instead. Dropping down the Regurgitate. Arkle over the top gets the kill with the airstrike. Continued aggression from Julio underneath the tier 2 tower, but now he retreats, uses the Ox Form for the knockups, and Arkle able to make it out of there. Beltzep don't end up getting the Fury. They get one pick onto the support, but now they're too low to stick around. Snake Pit might even be able to make a play.
Definitely a dangerous game to be playing if you're Beltzep right now. Too low for anyone outside of Trickstank to do anything. But I'm actually surprised. So first off, 4 shells that are used on the side of Snake Pit. All of them, you look, are pretty much in cooldown, in sync with each other. And that's a great idea, again, to stop Johnny from being able to hit anybody. I mean, think of how many block stacks you're getting off of that. What, 8? So you're now being able to block 8 of his autos. And theoretically, you're blocking some that come down from Arkle as well, so everybody's a little bit safer. That's why there aren't more kills there for Beltzep. But I was kind of surprised. Dazer, he was low on Omi going into that fight, low on health. You get regen for your Omi with the ult, and I was wondering, when's he going to drop it? Are they going to try to be aggressive, defensive? Either way, as long as he gets it, that's all that matters. He can get some more healing out of that. And he held on to it so long when he finally dropped the ult. It was his life that he traded for it. So I think that they're just waiting for it and maybe playing a bit too reactively for Snake Pit right now. And with those shells on cooldown for another minute, I think that's a big opening for Beltzep.
It is, but you got to give. We have to give Snake Pit a little bit of credit because I mean, losing Dazer instead of the Gold Fury is worth, right, for Snake Pit, or Oni Fury rather, in this situation. So you still don't feel too bad about it if you're Snake Pit, but as you're saying, could have been potentially even cleaner for them with all those shells in the back pocket to sort of limit what Johnny could do in these next few fights. And that's going to make it interesting for Zeros. You were talking about what a good target Johnny would be to turn into, but maybe not anymore. Perhaps they diversify a little bit in terms of their damage output and have Zeros turn into Worst Turtle again, or maybe even Tarum or Angry, and try and find some other options as Beltzep start the Oni Fury yet again. But remember, Snake Pit have the neutral vision. They already captured those oracles. Worst Turtle walks in, and it's a trap. They knew he was there. Overhead kick comes too late, and Johnny gobbles him up. But the Fury still stands, and Snake Pit are on their way.
Well, the problem is going to be whether or not they can make a big turn without your jungler, especially since Dazer just takes so much to begin with.
Tarum starts all-in committing onto Zeros, who ended up revealed after the stealth. The snipes from Spuddio are almost enough, but Zeros makes it out of there by turning into the Amma. But look at Julio fighting 3 all alone. Johnny gets the kill on the Tarum. Julio forces out the ultimate from Dazer, and inside the Somersault Cloud continues. His aggression is pulled back in by Angry. No one is nearby, and look where Arkle is. Are they starting up the Fire Giant? They are.
And, I mean, look at this. Oxform's going to come out. Oh, he gets caught by the stun. Julio might lose his life for this, but it's still 3 members of Snake Pit chasing him to try and do this. And you lose so much in that process, you're going to lose the Fire Giant.
They are going to lose it. I think this bait has worked perfectly. Beltzep pretending to take the Fury and truly taking the fire, trading away Julio's life, who nearly made it out of there for what it's worth in order to grab the biggest objective on the map. This is what Beltzep do so well. When you think you're only gambling with 5, they're taking 20.
Oh, and Zeros and Trickstank are right here for the Fury as well. You think you're safe for just a second as Snake Pit, and they're still in the position. Now Zeros has that little bit of a buff.
What? They got it! Beltzep steal the Oni Fury, well timed with the stun from Trickstank, and then Zero's there for the damage. Johnny gets the kill onto Angry over in solo underneath the tier 1 as Beltzep now 7,000 gold in control. There's only been 9 kills, Goremizer. How did this happen?
So, all I can remember is that at one point Worst Turtle was 2 levels up in the jungle, and now he's 5 levels down, and that's pretty much where it all went wrong. I can't tell you when that all happened. Johnny just all of a sudden was part of the game, and this is the problem. I love the shells. I like the upgrades. I think it's good to have those block stacks. You can see how useful they are just to stop Johnny from getting aggressive, but I don't know if it's ever going to be enough unless all of them are grouped up.
Zeros does get caught out by the River's Rebuke. Dazer gets that kill. Arkle finds the shots, though, and Worst Turtle ends up falling. Only had 2 shots and hits both of them. Tarum with the thorns, with the shell, is still not enough to dissuade Arkle from pumping out the damage. It ends up being a 1-for-1 Zeros for Worst Turtle. Beltsap now going to head over towards the Tier 2 and left. Remember, they've got the Fire Giant. These structures are going to come down.
And I think losing Zeros hurts Beltslap, but you still have Johnny and you still have Arkle, who I think between the two of them are going to be the ones most deadly to either a fight like this where Johnny just eats through Spudia or these towers. Either way, you're happy as Beltslap right now.
Beltslap take the Tier 2 tower in mid. It's a 10,000 gold lead now in their favor, and they want the middle Phoenix. Julio moves in first. Angry gets stunned. Finally uses the beads, but Trixtank keeps up the pressure. In fact, the ultimate used from Julio all the way to the Titan room. Good juke from Angry, who does stay alive, but yet again, Julio has done the right thing. He's traded his life for a Fire Giant and for a mid lane Phoenix. I think that's a pretty good haul.
And I was curious, I was watching him earlier, and, you know, I was curious about his build. He's got a lot of cooldown reduction that is built in there right before that sledge, but realistically, it's so he can keep making these ridiculous kinds of plays. Unfortunately, it's not enough to get his 72 transformations up every time he wants to get out of there. But in some of these engagements, he's gotten out and barely been clipped by Angry being able to pull him back in, or barely getting away and just picked off by that stun from Dazer. So I think he's always on the cusp of getting away with this. He's just unfortunately CC'd right at the right moments by Snakepit. But unfortunately, it's only happening to one person on Beltslap, Finch. It's not consistent enough. It's not stopping Johnny. It's not stopping Arkle. It's only stopped Zeros once, and I don't know if that's going to be something you can consistently rely on.
No, if he has the ultimate, he does not even fall in that situation where Dazer locks him down with the River's Rebuke. So in a lot of situations, Zeros is not even that great of a target either, Gore. This is becoming quickly an unsolvable problem for Snakepit, and really, in my mind, all of this goes back to that Gold Fury fight and things going so poorly for Snakepit. I think a lot of the times, what we see happening with the best teams is that when they lose, they don't lose as much as we saw Snakepit lose there.
What is ridiculous to me is trying to think about the future, right? I mean, what do you try to take care of here? I don't know if there's a lot. You have 3 great picks. This Yamoja's doing work.
Moja locks in 3 again. Trixtank leaps in as well. Julio's decoy, the clone rather, is the one that's in there battling, so no duress as the minions continue to pour down the middle lane. But Beltslap are not hard committing to this right side Phoenix. They're falling back. Fire Giant has just dropped off him at this point, Gore, so that was kind of their last hurrah. Now they'll fall back, strip the jungle, and make sure they're reset and in position for the next FG fight.
And I'm trying to think of the ways for Snakepit to fight on into this. Dazer just used his ult, so it's going to come back, I think, just in time for that Fire Giant fight. It might be a smidge late, depending on how well positioned Beltslap are. If they can burn that Fire Giant down fast on respawn, then it might be too late. But otherwise, you've still got snipes from Spudio. You still have Angry, who has a lot of objective burn and control around these fights. I want to see him get aggressive. The problem, again, has been the reactionary level play from them. Pretty much since that Gold Fury that you just highlighted, they've always been waiting for Beltslap to make the move. When they finally were able to, I think both times they've started up a Fury, it's been stripped out from underneath them because Beltslap just read the play a little bit better. But other than that, they've been sitting back, they've been waiting. Admittedly, in mid, you have to sit back and wait because of the Fire Minions. But I want to see some proactive play around this Fire Giant, or else you might just lose the game in the next 5 minutes.
Is this a Dispo here for Johnny, that a Bloodforge to finish this build out? He's going to be attacking very, very quickly with the build at this point, to the point where I don't even know how much value you're going to get out of those block stacks. He'll be moving through them relatively quickly, and all the way down the line, these builds for Beltslap make so much sense to me. The Spectral to deal with the crit coming out from Spudio, the big crit build from Arkle to punish Angry or Dazer if he catches them out for a moment without that much over there in response. I like what Beltslap have done throughout the entirety of this game. Itemization, builds, and how they're playing together.
Yeah, everything just fits, right? I mean, they're playing what, 3, 4, 5 gods they're all very comfortable with. They've played them all countless times at this level. Yeah. And you can feel it, that it's just electric in the air. What, 14,000 gold right now, a lot of control, and with a good separation. Johnny just eats through health bars like it's nothing.
They died instantly. Worst Turtle is right there to join him. That is 2 kills for Belt Slap to start the fight off. Mid Phoenix respawns and falls in an instant. Angry in trouble too. Julio goes up into the ultimate. There's a shell to try and keep him alive. He will not chase out the kill, but they've gotten mid and right Phoenix already, Gore, and they're heading towards left.
Finch, I see your 4 upgraded shells, and I raise you a separation of team that neither of them are going to be able to stop Johnny at. He's already healed back up. The Phoenix is going to go down. Belt Slap just separated Snake Pit perfectly and are picking them apart.
And Dardaz is locked down at the front of the fight. Arco gets that kill. Arco gets a double as Spudio falls as well. And there will be no stopping the Belt Slap boys. They completely roll over Snake Pit in game 1. 25.5 minutes. It's all it took for them to find the win.
Man, if that's not just the typical MO for Belt Slap, though, where it's just like, cool, you've got this small lead, let's just, see what you can do with it. Oh, we're going to steal the Gold Fury, get 3 kills, put you in the dirt the rest of the game, never let you feel like you have any room to breathe, suffocate you out until the flame in your Titan goes out and we win. It takes them, 25 minutes, 26 minutes to be able to do so, but that's the pace they're fine with. Again, they aren't going to always look for that aggression early on. They don't have to. They're going to play the map better than you. They're going to farm better than you. And so they just end up in these positions where, hey, out of nowhere, Johnny just has a 5-level lead on the jungler somehow. Like, you blink and you miss where he gets all of it, where all this gold come from. And it's just because Worst Turtle, when he was looking for those early game ganks, couldn't make anything happen.
And remember how Snake Pit was spending their early game, Gore, to talk about the moments when they were in control. It was all this pressure onto Arkle in the left side. Dazer was constantly ulting to try and keep him on cooldown. We saw Worst Turtle trying to gank over there several times as well. But Snake Pit, or rather Belt Slap, answered it. And when Snake Pit tried to turn their attention towards gold, they had the better answer with zeros. This is the exact fight where things went out of control, it felt like, for Snake Pit.
And I'm looking back on it. I think Worst Turtle, first off, he was the first one to die in that fight, and I think there's a lot of engagements where he was focused out early on. This Raven just didn't get to flourish. But I looked at his damage numbers, and it was the lowest in the game. It's sub 4,000 damage throughout all of that. Worst Turtle literally could not fight, and almost every single one of these replays he's getting pushed out. That 3,500 damage was at the beginning of the game, essentially, and then he just never got anything done for what feels like the last 15 minutes. I haven't seen a single clip of a fight that has started where Worst Turtle wasn't one of the first 2 dead.
He just did not get a lot of time to play this game. Johnny ended up being much more impactful than Worst Turtle, but I think you could say that basically entirely down the line. We're talking about Julio having 2 plays where he keeps 3 to 4 members of Snake Pit distracted while the rest of his team is able to do an objective, whether it be Phoenix or Fire Giant. They were in control of this game, and now Snake Pit in the picks and bans for game number 2 here, Gore, have a lot to try and make changes, because if you get Amaterasu, if you get Yamocha, if you have all these strong picks on your side and you still can't convert that into a dub, what changes do they have to make?
I was trying to think of that, and that's actually something I was trying to hint at during the last game, where I was like, look, what do you ban out, right? You got rid of Kali, Ao Kwang, you got rid of, I think Sobek was the other one. Maybe you don't ban the Sobek out, but what do you replace it with? Morgan, Bakasura? There's so much to try and ban away from Belt Slap that it's difficult. And the fact that Belt Slap are willing to kind of change up, I think they've banned out Nemesis, they've been banning Cthulhu, they don't care apparently if you have Yamoja and Amaterasu, so they'll shrug that off. Freya has been big for them, but only in the second phase of bans. The fact that they start this one with an Ola run kind of throws me for a loop because it's just so out of character for them.
Olarun and Nemesis, so Belt Slap still banning away the meta, meanwhile Snake Pit banning away the Sobek. And I think you kind of touched on it there at the beginning, Gore. I would not mind seeing a Morrigan ban from Snake Pit. It's just so much to deal with. But this makes me think, with the Ao Kwang and the Sobek ban, that we're going to be seeing a lot of the same. Very likely a Kali ban will be coming through next, if I had to guess here, Gore, just based on what they did in the first game. But now it's Belt Slap in first pick, so maybe that changes things a bit. They'll likely take the emoji here with it being available, and maybe Snake Pit can get a response with a Morrigan of their own.
It's so weird just because me in my mind trying to predict things that Belt Slap would want to pick has never worked for me in the past. I don't know if it's going to work for me now. Because, any team in most cases here, they grab themselves the Yamoja because of how potent she has been. And maybe you grab the Freya, who's also available. Maybe you grab the Amaterasu because you have the Cthulhu band out. There's so many options that we would see at any level of play be the ones that are picked up. But Belt Slap are so good with everything, especially compared to their competition, that they don't care about picking those things first. And that's why I think Jingwei works out well for him here.
And they did it last time because it doesn't reveal anything about their draft early. We know Arkle's going to play Jingwei well, and that's it. That's no extra information. So it makes it harder for Snake Pit to decide where they want to go. They'll take the Heimdall and the Emoja, but that still leaves Amaterasu, Morrigan, Freya all available for Beltslap to grab on the response. But this is a strong duo lane. Heimdall and Yamoja is plenty of pressure for me.
I was wondering if Beltslap... once I saw Jingwei, I feel like Freya gets written off for him. And it's really weird, but Arkle just doesn't seem to care about these mage carries. We don't get to see them too often. They are banned a lot, but yesterday and today, the 2 times I've gotten to watch Beltslap, this is the first time they've banned out Oleron, the first time they seem to care about any of the real mage carries overall. And honestly, it's not losing them anything. Arkle had a phenomenal game here. I think Jingwei, especially with the crit, as you had highlighted at the very end there, was doing so much damage for them that it didn't necessarily matter if you had any block stacks to try and stop it, because they'd eat through them and then they'd eat through your health bar thereafter. You get Fafnir and Tyr. Tyr, one of the best gods Julio has and one of his preferred styles of play. Fafnir, we just saw what Trixtank can do with. Beltslap can mostly run it back and be comfortable.
Oh, the Hebo picked up for Snake Pit Gorb. That gives him the 2-tap potential. The knock-up into the Crushing Wave should kill just about all aggressors on the enemy side, so Snake Pit find themselves a pretty nice pick. Now they're going to come back around, though, to some of these Johnny bans. They didn't ban the Kali to start with because they wanted to ban away the Persephone. Now they'll ban the Kali, and Beltslap are the ones banning the Morrigan away, it feels like, from themselves. Surprised at all that Beltslap, rather than pick the Morrigan, are electing to ban it here?
Very, but in my mind, it has to be something ridiculous. Like, Xeros was just talking it up the entire time while he was winning with it last time, so they were like, you know what? You don't get it anymore. What are you going to do now? And just try to put him on something different. Or maybe it's a genuine draft thing that comes through, because Morrigan is one of their better mids that come through. I mean, Xeros loves to play it. It looks good every single time, so why not pick her up? I'm curious to see what they're going to replace it with this game around, because I think it was very big. But it also might be, built around what they have on Snake Pit here. Yeah, I don't want to be Yamoja, and I don't want to be Hebo, although that feels weird to say because I would love to become them for a team fight. I think that it was maybe preference overall.
Interesting. Beltslap banned away the Freya, which I was surprised by with the Heimdall locked in, but it looks like they weren't too far off. Snake Pit ended up picking the Cupid, so they were clearly comfortable running a double ADC comp. And now Johnny running back the Robin that Worst Turtle struggled with in Game 1. Feels like maybe a little bit of let me show you how to play it, son, as Johnny locks this one in.
And yesterday we saw, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I believe collectively he had over 30 kills, so definitely something he is very adept at is this Robin, something you have to be worried about. And it was also the time we got to see yesterday the Thoth for Xeros as well, and it worked great against Oleron. There were a lot of times where he was able to get a final judgment right at the beginning of the Sanctified Field, so the ult felt like it was useless, but also just the damage it has through. Xeros just has good aim, and I think up against a Hebo, a Cupid, a Heimdall, a Set, like, they're pretty squishy on the side of Snake Pit, and I expect that this Thoth is going to take advantage of that.
Should be able to. Zeros loves this god. He got to play 2 gods in a row that he's a big fan of. But I'm wondering if we're going to see this set end up in the hands of Terrarim over there in the solo lane, or where these picks are going to go, because you'd think it'd be Hobwa jungle for Worst Turtle, and that is exactly the case. Terrarim will be taking this set over to the short lane. And this makes some sense. You love to be able to get set ahead and get a sort of bruisery type build online where he can do a lot of damage, just his base stats, but is it going to be enough to stop Julio and his signature pick in tier? I mean, it's pretty scary as a prospect.
I think we can see it flourish. The question is whether or not it's going to make a big difference in the team fights. The few times I've seen Set not in the jungle, that's always the question. And unfortunately, it usually gets answered negatively. It's just, what can you do over here that's going to make the big difference? When you rotate in, what are you doing that Julio is not able to do better than you, especially as a solo laner where they need your help? And most of the time, the answer's been nothing. I've seen a lot of good sets. You can get those kills. You can jump to the backline. Maybe you control Xeros. Maybe you control Arkle. But I don't know if you're going to have the lockdown that your team needs, and that's something they're going to be missing. An Amaterasu ult can stun 3-4 people and lock them up. This set, along with Worst Turtle, Angry, Spudio, like all 4 of them are just carries. They're just going to try to kill you faster than you kill them. I don't know if it's going to work out that way.
We don't see Arkle and Trix Tank do the Alpha Harpy start again, so I think that really is just something they do when they're okay with giving up pressure. It looks like they want to take a stab at it this time with the Fafnir Jingwei combination, but Spudio and Dazer get the slight better of them in the start of this, Spudio being the one that starts level 2. And that's another interesting point, Gore. We usually see the supports take that second level and try to get aggressive with those 2 control tools, but I think SMITE now has twice given that second level over to Spudio.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, and I think with Cupid it might be able to work. It either lets him play safe, or it gives you the hearts, which then gives him the mana sustain or the health sustain in lane to maybe help him get that pressure. But like you said, I mean, you know, you give it to Umoja, now you have a heal or you have the Riptide available for you as a secondary. And that's just a lot of setup, especially with where we saw Dazer put them early game last time. Maybe they're not the most potent that we got to see throughout all of it, but I still am a little curious to see it maybe not go towards the Umoja.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, if I'm picking between the dash for Cupid, which I think is what Spudio took, or, you know, the Riptide for Dazer, I think I'd rather the Riptide, especially in that same situation when they wanted to hard commit onto Trix Tank. But certainly, trusting Snake Pit at this point, if they think Spudio ahead gives them their best shot, then I am inclined to agree with them. And last game, we saw Snake Pit tried to establish pressure with Dazer's Umoja, tried to bring over Worst Turtle as the jungler, but they ended up getting sort of outclassed by Zeros on the Morrigan and what Johnny was able to do with the Bakasura. This game, though, I wonder if maybe if Worst Turtle and then you can get up to a little bit more, Worst Turtle and Dazer, if they end up working together. This Habois wants some items online, but once they're there, he has a ton of kill potential.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're looking at trying to lock people down, they're going to be able to do so wonderfully with a Hebo damage.
Dazer in a little bit of trouble. Trix Tank leaps forward with those underhand tactics, but they don't have quite enough damage to lock down Dazer. Good usages of those Riptides allow for Dazer to reposition and make his way out of what should have been a lot of trouble. A shell even being used, and they're right. An all-in commit to try and get this kill into Arkle, even using the stun to lock him down further. There's the bubbles for the slow, but Arkle still stands, gets the turnaround for First Blood. Even though Arkle ends up falling, First Blood goes to Belt Slap.
And that just beautiful thread the needle shot from Spudio. There's one step from Trix Tank that maybe helps that end up, well, not happening. You still have Arkle alive and Spudio in an awkward position. So I love the fact that he's able to thread that needle, at least to get something back for them. Because if you lose this First Blood, and you start losing maybe any pressure you had already, I think we're right back to, what was it, 8.5 minutes in last game where Belt Slap turned it around? I don't think you get that 8.5 minutes back. I think you just accelerate Belt Slap's ability to find a victory. So you need to keep him under control, and things like that help pull the reins back a little bit.
And certainly better to have that kill on Spudio as opposed to the one that's on Trix Tank, but as long as the Belt Slap boys are the owner of the First Blood bounty, I'm sure they don't feel too bad. Spudio getting a lot of pressure in lane with the threat of Fields of Love, with him being level 5 and Trix Tank and Arkle both still being level 4. Also worth noting, Zeros was able to get the beads from Angry in the middle lane with that evade and punish route on the Thoth, so he's got a lot of kill potential now in lane. If he can find a route and Angry can't use beads to get out of it, a Final Judgment or even just the Hieroglyphic Assault could certainly set up a kill for him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Well, I've actually, at this point, level 5 now for your mid and jungle and for Belt Slap. There's a lot of kill potential that's left out on the map in terms of slows and setup that can come through from Johnny. I'm scared if I'm Belt Slap. I mean, Heimdall hits hard, yeah, but I don't know if there's going to be a lot in terms of control that can really help them out, especially if Johnny looks for kills.
Spudio still has Fields of Love, but they're going to go in the back line for Dazer, and Fields of Love will not be enough to save him there. An easy gank for Johnny onto the left side to find his first kill of the game, and that's what you meant, Gore. I feel like you said something about kill potential for Belt Slap, and we just saw it on display.
It's this weird, like, mix as well, where actually Julio, I was worried he was going to fall down there, or maybe make some sick turnaround play on the Terror.
Yeah, I can't believe a tier player didn't up down there, Gore. That's crazy.
He's got Worst Turtle still lurking around. This is where things get really dangerous, I think, for Julio. Early on, you don't have the same damage and life potential, and I think that's something they have to grab onto here for Snake Pit. A good kill for Worst Turtle, but the problem I have with this is that it feels like you're picking up scraps as Snake Pit, right? You know, Belt Slap came through, they ate all of the meat off the bone, and you're trying to get anything they left, anything they might have missed. And yeah, you pick up a kill onto Julio, maybe it doesn't mean as much. I will say, though, Belt Slap, I'm torn between the argument of you've got 2 kills onto Dazer and killing the support isn't as important as killing some of the other members, and you're killing Yamoja, so of course it's worthwhile, right? It's right between the edge, but I think without this Yamoja, they're going to have to look for engagements like that, where you just have a pure numbers advantage and damage advantage. But I don't know that you're going to be able to find that too often, especially as we start approaching... Oh, we're only 6 minutes in, so maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. But once this 3v3 becomes a little more consistent, I think it's going to be harder for Worst Turtle to find a numbers advantage where they can just out-damage you. And then the slows start coming into effect, the roots start coming into effect, and Belt Slap's damage and lockdown becomes, I think, a little more apparent.
And you said it felt like Snake Pit were getting the scraps, and I think the reason it feels that way is because they're only getting what Belt Slap are allowing them to get. Dazer is able to get away with Riptide and River's Rebuke, but Trix Tank is there to follow up, gets the stun, and cleans up with the Draconic Corruption, so Belt Slap now have 3 on the board. All of them have been on to Dazer. Corey, you said it. They are looking to punish this Yamoja.
I'm still a little surprised by it, but it really does come down to the fact that if there was an Amaterasu, yeah, you could still shut down Dazer, but you have other forms of setup that Snake Pit are going to bring into the table. If you had literally any warrior over there, I think in the solo lane, you'd have something to worry about. But without Dazer, it's steal potential. Really, that's all they have. That's all I see. I don't see an organized fight where you're going to run into Trix Tank and Julio and Johnny
It's a good point.
and expect to get out alive without, immense setup. I mean, yes, Angry has a good ult. I think the same thing can be said. Worst Turtle with a slow. Spudio, who has a stun and a mez in his kit. Fields of Love is phenomenal for team fights. But they're also all really easily killed at any given moment. And so if Zeros just decides, you know what? You're not going to play this fight. He final judgments you from 100 to 0, and then, yeah, you're not playing that fight. You don't get to be in there, and then it's an even worse circumstance for Snake Pit.
Yeah, their second best form of CC, if Dazer's not there, is Fields of Love. And you could Heavenly Wings, you could sprint your way out of that, right? It's tough when you start talking about their lack of control, which you were just hitting on, and how maybe that is what Belt Slap have identified. They're trying to make Dazer a non-starter in terms of being able to control these team fights by bullying him in the early game, and it is working. Now, what has been working for Snake Pit is that Terrorum has just had control over here in the solo lane so far, but that's about to change. He was pushed under tower. Johnny is here as well, able to find the slow and the root, and Julio gets some much-needed revenge. So as if I spoke it into the universe, as soon as something went well for Snake Pit, Belt Slap showed up to take it away.
And Julio, at least as of right now, looks like he's still going to that movement speed build that we've got out of tier a lot early on this year. It kind of slowed down. It feels like a couple of players have dabbled in other builds where they'll shift things around. But I think Julio is going with not only what's comfortable, but what allows him to rotate around the map a little bit more. And I'm just worried for Terrorum. Yeah, you're an assassin. Yes, I think you're going to be able to out-rotate a little bit. But if Julio goes for movement speed on top of all of the CC he's going to be able to bring for the team, it just gets even more devastating to me the longer this game goes on for you. I think there's a lot of small ways to try and pull it back, but it's maybe up to Cupid and this Hebo to really make it happen. Angry hasn't really had a bad game, but not really a great game either. He's just kind of neutral there on this Heimdall.
Julio being ganked again, but this time Dazer is a part of it instead of Worst Turtle, and that is all they need. Looks like as long as they bring someone over who can supply the water, then Terrorum can find a kill in that solo lane. So they're able to shut down Julio one more time, 1 and 2 for the solo laner for Belt Slap, and that's about the only bit of offense we have seen Snake Pit be able to generate here is what they've been able to do in solo, and I don't know if that's going to be enough to stop Zeros, who's been free farming all game long, I believe was leading in net worth last time the chart was up. You're going to have a real problem when this Thoth gets his items online.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to think that this is still Thoth without anything going on for him, right? This is just Zeros chilling until he can get maybe only one more online, really, once he finishes off this spear. Probably going into Spear of the Mags, could be Desolation. Either way, he's going to get a big power spike, and that's going to hurt everyone on Snake Pit, especially when he starts charging up those ults. And it's going to be right around the time that groupings for Gold Fury become available as well.
There's the final judgment. Worst Turtle brought low, but Zeros might have ulted a bit too soon. Not going to be able to follow up and get any of the remaining damage, but might have just been that the window wasn't there either. Zeros took the only shot he could have gotten, and they didn't have any kill potential. Dazer had the lockdown to zeros, but Trix tank and the boys show up. The turnaround potential's there, and Dazer falls for the 4th time this game. They're not even letting him show his head without getting punched down.
It's, man, I'm trying to think if I was this Yemoja, what am I trying to do now, man? I've got 4 deaths to my name. Out of the 5 that have been picked up for Belt Slap, they do not want Dazer to be a part of this. And honestly, it's just going to continue getting easier for him. At this point, level 7, if I'm Thoth and I'm getting this kill, that means nothing to me in terms of a bounty. But again, in terms of control, you could go for a Gold Fury the next time you kill Dazer, and what's Snake Pit going to do? If you can burn Fields of Love fast, all you have to do is disengage for a little bit, and then maybe either A, kill Spudio, or B, kill a Fury, or whatever objective you're looking at that time. So I think they're just playing the way that, admittedly, is going to help them out the most in the late game. It's just going to be shut down the CC, shut down the healing in its, most effective capacity, and just see what we can do with it.
They want Julio dead, man. They're coming back over again to try and grab this tier. Julio, though, brings Dazer underneath the tier 1 tower. It's not enough for the kill, but it is enough to slow the aggression. They're fully on the retreat as Julio lives through even more pressure in the solo lane. And he got Terrorum's beads out when they were scrapping in the jungle. Perhaps that's part of why Terrorum and Dazer didn't feel comfortable continuing the aggression underneath the tower.
I'm really excited to see this kind of pivot, though, because for Julio, right now it's a lot of health in the build, not a lot of protection, so it's still going to take a little bit to burn him down, but your damage is still going to be there. Once he gets a protection item online later, though, now he has all this health, and he's limiting the damage you're doing to him, so it's going to make it much more difficult. And already proving that he can turn around a gank on a dime like that, especially with Dazer dropping his ult, is impressive to me. Almost getting a kill. If he had his ult at the time, it would have been a kill, because you cannot convince me Julio would not have jumped right on in to try and kill that Yemoja.
And Spudio might be in trouble too. Has already used the Fields of Love, and Johnny is on his way. There's the root. Arco gets the kill, and that, Gormizer, is the difference. Snake Pit have been all in trying to punish Julio this game. But look where he is, only about half a level behind Terrum. He's pretty close. But when you look at where Beltsap have been putting pressure onto Dazer, the result is that both Trixtank and Arkle are out in front of their lane opponent. It's just been more valuable what Beltsap have been working on all early game than what Snake Pit have. And now they're going to start pulling this Gold Fury. Spudio's not there. Whose job is it to check this when the Hunter's gone? They'll add 1,500 more gold to their pockets.
And when you have a giant 3-man at that point, Coerce, where you're just going to shred through any objective that stands in your way, I don't think you're worried about it. That's something that this Fafnir brings that, yeah, you're not maybe getting the same amount of CC or healing that Yemoja brings in, but I think this fits Belt Slap's style and Trixtank style.
Zero's able to use the evade and punish to get away from the River's Rebuke for Dazers. That makes that ultimate functionally wasted. Zero's even got some good return damage in, but didn't have enough for kill pressure at the very least. But this has been another game controlled by Beltsap. It's a different way. In game 1, Gore, we saw Beltsap kind of just take it all at once, it felt like, at the 8.5-minute mark when they regained control of the early game and just steamrolled it from there.
Yeah.
But this has been a much slower, more methodical game from Beltsap to establish their current 2,000 to 3,000 gold lead.
And I think it really is the difference of the God's power curve they have, right? You get ult for ult, maybe you're not winning but not losing as Arkle in this lane for a long time. I think you get Johnny on something that has a much earlier spike than a Bakasura for sure in this Raven. And so he's able to be in the game a little bit more. Last time it was, cool, we're going to steal all of the Furies that get taken away and make sure we'll win in those ways. This time, they have exactly what they need in the toolbox to make sure that you can't get an early game lead on them. You're sitting 3,000 behind a Snake Pit. It's not the end of the world for you, although it definitely hurts against a team like Beltslap. But I think it is just Johnny's versatility that is helping them out here to get this different cultivated lead than they had last game.
Trixtank and Johnny getting aggressive in the jungle. They don't find much, though, as Snake Pit do a good job of pushing off that aggression from the Beltsap squad and finding a way back into their own jungle. This is going to be a difficult sort of just section of the game here for Snake Pit because they've got to be in, not in crisis control mode, but they're certainly in mitigate mode. They can't allow this lead to get any worse than it is because we've already seen what Beltsap can do. With a larger one, Arkle almost gets locked down by the River's Rebuke, but just ends up walking out of it, holds onto the beads, holds onto the Aegis, and is now turning around looking to fight.
The question is, again, what are you going to do as Arkle? I think you need a little bit of help around there. Yeah, you have a lot of damage to you, but I don't know if he's going to be the end-all be-all over here. I actually think Dazer hanging around might cause a little more trouble for them. Again, it's just trying to figure out how you can get this aggression. I'm still surprised to see SMITE, maybe of all things, focusing on this left-hand side of the map now, because it feels like they just kind of flipped where their focus would be. Fury is down, now they're putting pressure on left lane. Whereas, in my eyes, Fury is down. This is where you start harassing Julio a little bit. This is where you go over to the solo lane and zone him out so you can maybe get some pressure onto a Pyro, maybe try to sneak an early Fire Giant like Beltslap did last game. I don't think you successfully make a call like that, but it just feels like their pressure and prioritization of that pressure is in the wrong spots right now.
I know what you mean. This is where you have the least to lose by hanging out in the solo lane, you'd think, for SMITE, but maybe they're to the point now where Julio just feels unkillable. They have heavily committed to him all game long, and they've only gotten 2. I like this from Tarum, though. This is full-on toxicity going the Frostbound Hammer set. No way you're getting away from this guy once he gets those first couple of autos on, and he already slows you as is. So things are going to be difficult if you're zeros and you don't have that evade and punish. Even if you use it, he can use the clone to catch up. I wonder if Tarum's going to be kind of hard switching to making Zeros his target as Dazer again gets caught out, is able to use the Riptide, but Zeros hits the final judgment. That is it for Dazer as he takes his 5th death of the game. But now Arkle over in the left lane gets flattened by the crushing wave. The Aegis is too late, and worse, Turtle gets a much-needed response kill for SMITE.
Man, if that was just a second earlier, even half a second earlier for Arkle, I think he might actually turn around to kill right there. At least he stays alive and gets out, because he still had the aerial assault. Like, he still had the ability to get out of there in the event that things were super dangerous, or if he could just live slightly longer. But I like the pressure. I think SMITE, like you said, much needed. They needed that kill more than anything because things like this keep happening. You're angry, you're barely able to get through the Bifrost there. You're Zeros, you have nothing to worry about. You're hitting those snipes. He's online now that he's finished that Spear of the Magus. The damage is just up from here. So I think you have to be a little more cautious if you're SMITE in these engagements because any moment could fall apart for you.
It's fail not 4th item for Arkle, though. We get to see what he's buying since he was sent back to the store. Erendite for Johnny, and he's working on, looks like Transcendence coming next for him. Genji's for Julio. And there's plenty more coming for Beltslap here in terms of finishing off some big power spikes. Spudio is going crit as well, but he's getting the Rage in that slot cheaper than the fail not, so that might be part of the reasoning. This is a good time, though, for Beltslap to want to fight. They just finished some key items, and Gold Fury's up, or Oni Fury.
This is important for Dazer to stay alive. Maybe if they can get Trick Tank, it might even be a big turnaround for him, but he's just so tanky. I'm going to go ahead and pull that one right back off the table. I don't think it's going to happen at any point, especially if he has his ult available for him. With Zeros around, that's too much secure. Even with Worst Total, they have a lot of burst damage on SMITE, but that I don't think is going to be good enough to lock down an Oni Fury. I just don't know that they have what they need to take a team fight here. In fact, I think it's almost deadly if you misstep because Julio's rotating in. He's going to have good CC.
Yet another fight where Dazer's low early, avoids the final judgment, makes it to the back of the fight, and somehow is still alive. The Fields of Love have a couple members locked down inside, but Johnny finally completes the kill onto the enemy support. Tarum looking for Zeros, but Arkle was there reining in the damage all along, and Zeros gets his killing spree completed. It's a 2-for-0 in favor of Beltslap, and SMITE licking their wounds or running away. Beltslap can take the Oni Fury as it's well earned.
Not as dominant as we got to see last game, but still dominant in the exact way you would expect from Beltslap, right? 2 kills, they get rid of your frontliners, the only people who could feel successful trying to aggress into an Oni Fury fight like that and set up and make the room and space this team needs. And now they're just going to turn it into this small amount of aggression. Both crystals were covered there. Angry pretty much had nowhere to go. And I'm surprised to see that he's walking away with his life.
Spudio dashes in to try and punish Julio, but Heart Bomb off the mark. Arkle grabs the Tier 1 tower in left, and Beltslap continue to spread the map out. And as you said, Gore, maybe not quite exactly the same, but the end result sure feels the same, doesn't it? It's now a significant lead at the 20-minute mark for Beltslap, and they've got some of the scarier late-game picks you can have. Obviously, this Jing Wei is plenty scary, but I'm worried about Zeros on this Thoth with Magus and Soul Reaver finished. He's gonna be swinging.
And now you're starting to see, I think, where the damage is going to be coming from. Between him And I think where Arkle is just now finishing that fail knot, the crit going to be coming online for this Jing Wei. Team fights are going to get more difficult. Trying to jump into the back line the way that Terrorum did during this last fight, it's not going to happen as easily or as often. And, well, maybe with the same amount of success, because he did die last time he tried to do it, and I expect that's just going to happen more consistently. Even with that sledge, even with this bruiser build, I just don't know that this set is going to be the end-all, be-all for Snakepit and turning it around. But it is bringing a different flavor, and I think it's distracting Belt Slap just enough. It does more damage than they expect it to. It might not be as tanky as a warrior because of the assassin scaling, but honestly, that's been helpful so far, at least in putting pressure onto Zeros, onto Arkle, maybe zoning out Johnny. So I want to see a little bit more from Terrorum, and I think he's in the right spot to make these plays.
And Snakepit are going to need more from Angry. 0-0 and 0, bottom of the game in player damage. There's not been a ton of action in mid, so it is somewhat understandable, but you're locking in this Heimdall. I believe it was their first overall pick for Snakepit, and you're expecting some value out of him. He's got Fail Not Atalantis here finished. He's certainly at that point where he's got his strength. As Dazer steps forward, Final Judgment almost enough for the kill. He locks down several inside the River's Rebuke, but Zeros makes it out of there safely. Terram is now the one that's in trouble near the front of the fight, but the tier 1 tower still stands. Snakepit found a good defense.
Finally being able to just bounce back a little bit, right? At this point, you are trying to slow down Belt Slap more than you're trying to catch up. You're 6,000 gold down. What you're trying to do is hold on to the game and make sure you don't go down until you can make one of those big plays. But these towers are going to play a big role in giving what could be Belt Slap an immense lead. If you have to be very careful trying to bounce them back, at least hold on for a Fire Giant, try to be contested in a fight like that, or else that's where it all slips away. I mean, this is the moment last game where we started to see a lot pick up for Belt Slap, I should say. And I don't know if you saw it, Finch, but that Aegis just used by Arkle by accident as he tried to back there is probably going to be a helpful window for Snakepit if they can try to find it, but I don't know if they know that it happened.
That's right. They don't necessarily have the information, so maybe Arkle can get away with it, but it's a great thing to point out as he finishes off that Wind Demon. He is certainly going to be more vulnerable now without that Aegis, particularly to something like Auror's Turtles damage coming out, which happens very quickly, or potentially buying a little bit of time to escape for Terrorum. But Belt Slap are the ones getting aggressive. They want Angry, who just barely makes it inside the Bifrost and uses the ultimate. That's the Aegis and ultimate on cooldown now for Angry.
Unfortunately, I think this is going to spell a little bit worse case scenario for Angry than it is for anybody else, but it's Dazer that's first eliminated, just like every other fight, Finch.
I promise he was there for a moment. Terrorum will be there to join him. A double kill now for Arkle in the middle lane as they do finally find that tier 1 tower. About a 10,000 gold lead, not quite, more like 9k in favor of Belt Slap here at this point. But they're going to start heading over towards FG. Johnny and Julio are going to be looking for picks in the meantime. Worst Turtle getting punished, has the Crushing Wave available, but Angry in trouble as well. Johnny has the 100-0 potential, so Angry ends up falling. Snakepit aren't even considering defending the Fire Giant. They're just trying to stay alive.
And it's, what, just Julio right now? Julio and Johnny separately chasing down their own member of Snakepit that they decided was going to go down. With Johnny not having his ult, Julio just got his. And this is, Finch, this is aggressive positioning. This is Julio, like, trying, like, his team, comms, I imagine, are yelling, don't go in, let's just win the game, stop, slow down, do whatever it needs, rotate in, because, I mean, Fire Giant, full control, full damage, there's nothing to worry about here for Belt Slap.
Dazer finds a good ultimate on the edge of the tower line, and Arkle should get trapped inside the ultimate, but it's Spudio that gets the kill into Zeros first. But making his way to the backline is Johnny. Gets the kill onto the Cupid. Rooted at the front of the fight is Terram, but he lives through it all as Julio puts some basic attacks into the right side Phoenix. It finally drops down. Belt Slap have to trade their mid laner, but they are able to get that right side Phoenix.
I feel like there's always one Belt Slap play that is, okay, we're going to trade out Zeros for something. And it's usually a big something. It's not just throwing him off into the wind and, you know, tossing him into the trash. It is just the, okay, Zeros, I'm sorry, you're going to have to die here. But hey, we got the Phoenix, that's all that matters. We get the tower right after, we'll pick up a Primal Fury just because we can. And it is that moment where you finally get what feels like a big kill back from Snakebit. and it means nothing. Yeah, you killed Zeros, but what'd you do? You took Fire Giant off of the mid laner. He's not the one that really needs it right now. Keeping it on Arkle, in my mind, as well as Julio and Trickstank, they're the three most important that I would want to give that to because they can help take down towers, having that sustain and that pierce that they'll have from the buff. And so being able to just burst through towers now, Phoenix is now still available there for Belt Slap, and unfortunately it's been the same story. I can say it 7 different ways, but it's all the same thing. You kill Dazer, you get rid of a lot of Snake Pit's engage, and they just don't have enough. I mean, Terrorum can get into the backline, he's tanky enough to maybe disrupt a little bit, but he's not going to be the one setting up kills for Worst Turtle and Angry. He's only being able to dance around them, help them set them up. I just don't know that it's going to work for him. If Dazer goes down early this time again, it might just be GG.
Belt Slap with a commanding 14,000, closer to 15,000 gold lead at this point. You can see it in the itemization. Staff mirrored and finished for Zeros. Johnny was able to get a mantle to round out his build with a little bit of extra tankiness. Not a better tankiness on demand item as far as I'm concerned. The full crit build there for Arkle with Deathbringer, Wind Demon, and the Fail Knot. This is going to be a real difficult battle for Snake Pit as Trickstank's already making his way in, transforming into the Draconic Corruption, immediately waiting for him as the Fields of Love. As Angry has a great Aegis to immune the final judgment coming out from Zeros. And now the River's Rebuke has locked in Belt Slap. They have to use a couple of ultimates to get back out. And Julio's still stuck underneath the Phoenix in between everyone. But he retreats back. Belt Slap going to have to reset before they look for another siege.
They still have sustain in form of the Fire Giant buff, but not as much as you would have if you had something like that Umoja, like that Cupid on their side. But Trickstank doesn't seem to care about this health bar. As long as they get the Phoenix, they're happy with it, but they're not done finished.
Big damage coming out into Johnny, though. He's in trouble. Crushing Wave lands on the Trickstank, and Worst Turtle gets the kill into Johnny. Terram shuts down Arkle. Trickstank falls to Spudio, and Snake Pit rising from the ashes. Find a 3 for Zero. Might even be able to find another one here. Zero's evade and punish covers a large amount of distance, but Worst Turtle is on the cutoff path. So is Dazer coming underneath. They're looking to cut off this Belt Slap team, but Julio, waiting to spring a trap, catches out Terrorim, who is looking to find Zeros.
And I think being able to lock down Zeros, get that kill, means something. Trying to lock down Julio instead, it's not going to get you anywhere. So I think that's what Snake Pit recognized. They do still have some siege potential, though. But Finch, I want to get excited about it, but there's 5 towers on the map. There's no Fire Giant, there's no Fury. There's really not much you can do in terms of Snake Pit and try to take these things down outside of tier 1s. Maybe put a little bit of pressure on a tier 2, but at this point it's 10 seconds away from Belt Slap respawning. So strip what you can in the jungle if it exists. See if you can set yourselves up for contesting the next Fire Giant, because last time it went untouched. But for the most part, it's such a huge win that has nothing that you can do afterward to make sure you continue this route. They need another bounce like that. Otherwise, they're going to be too preoccupied with fire minions, too preoccupied trying to defend the base, and Belt Slap are going to be able to just run through the rest of the game.
They might need another 2 or 3 defenses like that to convert it into anything meaningful. You're right, Snake Pit able to find a defense, but it doesn't amount to much except delaying Belt Slap's next siege. The good news is, though, for Belt Slap, they've got the left side Phoenix, the most important one in the game, down. Now there will be fire minions the furthest from the Fire Giant possible, and Snake Pit will have a difficult task trying to defend against both. But down 14,000 gold, I don't even know if Snake Pit are even considering defending FG. They'll probably just wait on Phoenixes and hope they can make another miraculous defense.
Well, that's that question, and you want to consider it. You want to be in there. You don't want to just give up a Fire Giant for free. Can you? Can you afford it? Can you do anything with it? And I think the answer is just no. First off, might be the 3-level lead and difference between the supports. I just don't think Dazer has a place in this game just yet. Even though he's tanky, they're burning through him like it's nothing. Very similar to how they burned through that Fire Giant like it was nothing. And now, you know, you're looking at half the Omi sitting around in his bars. Not a lot of room for error here for Snake Pit.
This is well timed, though, from Belt Slap. There will still be fire minions pushing down left, and this right side Phoenix is weakened as well, so it'll be easy to take exactly like that. Arkle uses the ultimate defensively to get out of the River's Rebuke. Dazer, already flinching from all the damage he's taking, is starting to retreat. But Belt Slap are done with the right lane. They're coming to mid, where there's still a Phoenix standing to get.
And that's because they have 2 waves of fire minions running past that left Phoenix right now. Now that they have respawned fire minions over there and right, once they get mid, it's just the full sweep of control that they're going to have over here. They can then put their attention on a weakened Phoenix and left, and Dazer's not going to be around long to be able to look at it.
But that's what the Staff of Mirrodin does for Zeros. He gets the double dash proc, so he dashes in, Fields of Love comes out, uses beads, and dashes back out. Great use of that item from Zeros, who is always thinking uniquely about how to get maximum value. That is 3 Phoenixes down from Snake Pit, which is essentially a death warrant, the same as filling out a will. At this point, you're kind of just waiting.
Unfortunately for Snake Pit, it really is these where do you win, where do you take these fights. Left Phoenix is going to respawn. That's more than likely the next target for Belt Slap. But if you aren't able to defend there, first off, that's the game. But second off, it's already weakened. It's difficult to stand under that and make a big difference. With Dazer getting as just blown up as he has, once Zeros has this ult available again, I expect someone on the side of Snake Pit is going to be starting around 1/4, if not lower, HP. So you have to be careful with where you engage. If Johnny and Julio get too greedy, this might be a good chance for Snake Pit to turn it around.
They are fully on the retreat. Beltslap have all 5 members grouped. Julio blinks in, 2-man Fearless, and Spudio already in trouble. Holds on to the beads, though. That's great recognition. Dazer has to use the ultimate to try and lock out a couple members, but Johnny punishes it for him, hits him with the Goomba Stomp, and that's 1 kill for Beltslap. Now, Johnny forcing his way over to the left side Phoenix. They do not have a minion wave here, but they might not even need it. Minions are on the Titan. Snake Pit aren't here to defend, and that's the left side Phoenix down now. They keep right on pushing. Julio is the target elsewhere on the map, but they don't have the damage to burn through him quickly. He's got Worst Turtle in trouble to the right side of the fight. Final Judgment is able to hit Spudio, and that brings him down low as well. But how long can Snake Pit hold off?
Well, they're trying their best, Finch, but they're too low. They were too preoccupied trying to find the kills. The fire minions are pouring in, and Arkle has a double kill.
That opens up the door. Spudio is all that can defend. He has no ultimate, and Beltslap, as cleanly as you can ask for, are able to take the 2-0 over Snake Pit. And I feel like at this point, Gore, the question becomes, is there anybody, anyone in the EU SCC that can stop this team? They seem to just be running through them.
Man, history, and so far all my studying about Beltslap points to no. But I really hope, it's just so difficult, and you know, we've talked about this team being SPL caliber. Every time we look at them, it just seems like 5 guys that if they wanted to, if they were able to, could get picked up, brought over here, playing in the same league as some of these other teams, and giving them trouble too. I think they are that good to be able to make that difference. But the fact that they're here dominating, it's just catch up for everybody else. What can we do to try and slow them down? What can we do to figure them out? There's too much to ban against Beltslap. There's too much that you have to worry about in the early game. I think game 1 was a little closer from Snake Pit because they had about 8.5 minutes of control before it was taken away. But this time, Beltslap, it was a slow burn. There were a lot of fights back from the Snake Pit, but not enough to stop Beltslap from being the dominant force that we've seen them be.
And remember how this game started. There was a lot of pressure in solo from Snake Pit, but Terrorum never really got that much of a lead, so that didn't pan out for them. Dazer got bodied basically all game. 0-7 or something near that near the end of the game. Wasn't able to get a whole lot done. And Angry was largely invisible to me on this Heimdall. I didn't see a whole lot of value come from him either. This was Beltslap using the Robin for Johnny, using Julio's pressure, and then getting their carries to the late game and just rolling right over Snake Pit. It felt like they were up against very little resistance, but that's just because of how strong Beltslap is. I think Snake Pit played well.
Man, most of the times, you know, that you highlighted it, that I saw Angry, it was discussing how well Beltslap were covering both crystals, so there was no way that Angry could get away from them, right? And it's just one of those things. I think the picks there for Snake Pit, you put them against any other team here in Europe, and it's not only a highly contested game, but they're probably even able to take a couple of wins throughout some of these. I think it's just the fact that it's Beltslap, just the fact that you're up against this team that has been undefeated literally all year. I think dropped, 5 total maps this year, and every single one of those has been in playoffs, not even in regular season. You've got to figure something else out. And honestly, you have the rest of this phase, and I think one more in the year to try and stop them, because I don't see Beltslap, ever getting taken out, relegated from the Challenger Circuit, and I don't see anyone slowing them down, at least not for the next couple of weeks.
So it's a 2-0 weekend for Beltsap. They win both of their sets in 4 games. They play no extra overtime. Now let's take a look at the standings. Obviously 4-0 up at the top, but Snake Pit, as we said, are not a weak team. They're sitting 3rd in the standings right now. It's just that they ran into a brick wall this week in Beltslap. The EU Challenger Circuit, though, continues to be exciting to me. I consider Cold Llamas, who are currently 5th place, an exciting team to watch with plenty of talented players all the way from 1 to 6. The EU SCC is stacked with talented players.
And, I mean, it's one of those things, right now, no wins to their name, but Smiley Face, they're one of those teams that's taken a map off of Beltslap. You can go back, watch that game, you can call it a fluke, you could whatever you want to talk about. They still got a win against a team that nobody else has been able to. Yeah, it didn't evolve into the set, but the fact that they were able to start off 1-0 up against a team that powerful, I think highlights them at the very bottom. The same thing for the other team that joined in from the open circuit. I think all other 5 teams that are besides Beltslap are fighting for that second place spot. Poppies have the 10-year, the same thing I think for Cold Llamas and Snake Pit as we just saw, but everybody is vying for that spot. The question is just which one gets to prove themselves as maybe the most superior by being the only team that could take down Beltslap, because that's maybe more than getting first place in my eyes, is just having that trophy.
Yeah, could we be the one that was finally able to put a 0 or a 1 over there for them in the loss column? Could certainly be interesting for them. That's going to do it here for us with the EU SCC, the Challenger Circuit, but we still have the Pro League, the SPL, coming up. That's at 3 o'clock Eastern, but in case you're confused, that is in 41 minutes. So you got a little bit of time to go get a drink, make a snack, but make sure you're right back here for the SPL. We'll see you then.